100,000.
No, it came out.
It went up 100,000.
Every single one was a.
That is the first question of the whole election.
That's his evidence.
Yeah, it's clear.
There's also places where there's been more votes.
100,000.
No, it came out. There's also places.
100,000 votes. Yeah, it's something going on there.
There's also places where there's more votes than votees.
Yeah, that's no. I went on Snopes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, they claim that.
That's what I was saying in a few states.
The whole thing doesn't make sense. You can see a whole state red, but the Blues win.
Yeah, because it's not like it works here.
It's
Very, very, very different.
California
Very
is the
different.
big one. No, why has California got 54?
Because of its
Population. Did you see
its population per square meter.
Oh,
8 million for the Democrats, 4 million for very liberal. Very liberal. To have that small of a margin.
Yeah.
It's all about the city.
It's
It's more enough for him to contest. It's going to go on.
There's a few states.
Shame, I was hoping Trump would win.
He'll fight.
Have you done the charts?
Yeah, he can fight as much as he wants.
Done the charts?
He could still win. He could still win. It's all about
He
Yeah, they're looking too small now.
He can fight all he wants. If the votes aren't there, he can't be there.
Oh, Tolly. Ben, keep-
Why, Pennsylvania as well?
Yeah, Nevada didn't give it. That is illegal.
Why, haven't lost it?
8,000 votes behind the Nevada, only 67%.
Tolly.
Yes, what we're putting on.
Can you upload?
Prevent violence. Yeah, it will prevent violence. 270 exactly. What are you looking at?
No, 270 exact doesn't help him. He needs to get more.
No, the
Oh.
first 270. Whoever gets 270 means the other one goes.
Ah. So from Tov Kuf Vov,
Tom Huff,
no, from Tov Kuf Vov,
they got the same.
They've got the Liberals can't do much because the Republicans have gained a lot of seats.
And the Supreme Court is heavily weighted.
Yeah, so that's the thing. He's hoping to get these appeals.
okay, Tov Kuf Vov all the way to
If you count it, then look at the vote.
To the end of that page.
more, and then to the next page.
It's 7,500 votes different in Nevada. He might, if he wins that,
Yes, that was for the vote, then, who to say?
Okay,
co-sign Raider.
Good old
He lives in Nevada.
we're up to
Vegas.
Go ahead, Vegas.
We'll go there quickly now.
So both those two pages, yeah?
Biden
Yes.
won't be alive in about a year anyway.
It's
There's no
not
money on
him.
his way out.
It's not him. It's just the front of the whole
we're up to
I saw him on the status this morning. Hashem 2020.
we're up to page Zayin Mudalef from the second white line.
This is the most important.
Ben Yonah writes in Shai Tshuva that if somebody says, "What's the purpose of people learning Torah? How are they helping us?" So it's a very big Rosh, says of Ben Yonah. Not only that, he's arguing with the Torah. Where does the Torah say that those who learn Torah help? Does anybody know? Ben Yonah in Shai Tshuva writes, anybody who says that those who learn Torah are wasting people's time because they don't help us in any way. So anybody who says that is a very big Rosh. And besides for that, he's also arguing with the Torah. What's his first name? Gershi. Tiny bit quiet if you don't mind the voices. Says
During the wars, they always had to have in the game.
okay, there are many places, but Ben Yonah says there's one place in the Torah which shows that that person's completely wrong. Where?
Say what?
That Torah doesn't spoil the
If a person says, what am I gaining from the fact that people are learning Torah? What does it help me? One way does it help me? As I tell you that upstairs in certain shul, there's 20 people learning. What's that help me? So when you says somebody who says that is a very big Rosh, and he's actually arguing with the Torah. Which part of the Torah is he arguing with? I thought you would guess. It says Mefurish Pasuk in Parshas Vayera. Hashem says to Avram Avinu says to Hashem, there's 10 people in Stoim. Would you save Stoim? And he says yes. He says, you see that if it's a tzaddik in a town, he saves the town. And I saw once written down that like this, that each person, it's not actually if the world, if it would be new the whole world would stop to exist. It's not like a light switch goes on and off. It's like one of these light switches which dims a dimmer and goes lighter. One person, nobody in the world learns Torah, the light goes off completely. If there's 2 people, it gets brighter. 3 people, it gets even brighter. If there had been 10 people in Stom, the whole of Stom would be saved. So by us learning now, we're actually saving potentially the whole of Manchester, maybe the whole of England. Says the Gemara, Omar Abai. Right. Here you need your thinking caps on. We said, let's look at the pictures which Shtoli has hopefully already put on. If you want to draw water, so one of the pictures which Shtoli loaded up was Tov Kuf Yud Ches. It's a picture of an enclosure to be able to get water out of the river. Tov Kuf Yud Ches. If you remember yesterday, we discussed the situation. I'm sorry, did I disturb you? Yashi, did we stop you? No.
7 to 8.
Oh. So the Gemara said yesterday that you have to have an enclosure. What happens if you've got a flat piece of wood? What did we say yesterday? Kilo it bends. Do you remember? Do you remember? Now, the next 3 cases of the Gemara describe a situation where a person did not bother building a proper enclosure. All he did was he put a piece of wood, and if you cut it right, you'll create an enclosure. Maybe we'll look at the pictures first, and that way it will be easier. So let's look at picture Tov Kuf Hey. Did you put Tov Kuf Hey up as well? Sorry.
The top of the page.
Did you
It's there.
Tov Kuf?
Top right.
Yeah, top right. First page.
So here you look carefully. If you've got a Tov Kuf Hey, pass. So somebody put a platform. Can you make that platform into an enclosure? Yes, you can. Look at the next picture, right next to, not brilliant picture. If you look at it, what you do is you fold. It's less than 3 from the wall. Very good.
You fold it in your mind.
Fold it in your mind. You don't actually have to do anything about it. You fold it in your mind.
Because it's close up to the wall.
Oh, very good. You hit the nail on the head. Because it's close to the wall, says Rashi, one of the 4 of the enclosure is the wall. So now you need 3 more. So then if you look at the picture very carefully, look at Tov Kuf Hey. I think Tov Kuf Hey is a better picture.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my voice is a bit gone today, so I'm going to speak a bit quieter. Tov Kuf Hey. I didn't even listen to the news last night because I thought if I start listening, I might get drawn into it. This morning, somebody came into me. I said to the news, who won?
Yeah.
So he said to me about that because I met somebody. I said, who won? So he said to me, they still don't know. I said, oh, well, relief I didn't listen. Anyway, if you look at Tov Kuf Hey, if you fold it by the jagged white lines, you will have an enclosure. If you look carefully, you'll have an enclosure. Have you got the pictures? You put it up. You don't have your phone with you. You have your phone? Tov Kuf Hey. If you cut it in Tov Kuf Zayin for a second. Tov Kuf Zayin, the wood is not flat. Tefachim is a lobut. So you've already got 10 tefachim. Where there's the letter base on each side, there's only 1 tefach. You fold 1 tefach in, and then you have less than 3 tefachim from the wall. So it's a platform. It's enclosure. It's enclosure. So then you need much less. Look at the next picture. They've even shown you how it is folded in. But you do. Wait a second. You don't need to actually create the enclosure, as long as you imagine the enclosure. And finally, Tov Kuf Yud Aleph. Tov Kuf Yud Aleph, you've got 2 walls. If you look at Tov Kuf Yud Aleph, you've got a corner wall, and all you've got is 2 tefachim. That's all you've got, 2 tefachim piece of wood. So if you've got a piece of wood, 2 tefachim, imagine this is a piece of wood. And it's not bent. But in theory, you could imagine it being bent. And it's a tefach going to one wall and a tefach going to the other wall. Here's the corner. Here's my house, right? So all I need to do is have a piece of wood here, and imagine it's bent 1 tefach in each direction. 1 tefach, if it's 3 tefachim away from the wall, it's a lovut. So it's like 4 tefachim. So I have my enclosure. So we have 3 diagrams. That's all. It's very simple.
So if we're using our imagination, so
Yeah.
why does it have to be a wide piece of wood? Put a string there.
Oh, because if it doesn't have the potential to create an enclosure, it's not good enough. It has to have enough wood there to be able to create enclosure if you would bend it. It doesn't have to be wood, it could be material, it could be anything. But there has to be cloth as well. But there has to be something that there's enough material there that you could in theory make an enclosure, but the enclosure does not need to be full 4 tefachim. It just needs to be a tefach away from the wall. If you've got a wall and this goes up to a tefach away from the wall, so if it's 3 tefachim away from the wall, so that's good enough, it's an enclosure. That's all the Gemara says in the next 5-10 lines. We're up to the second wide line on Daf Pei Zayin Amud Aleph. Omar Rabbi, Uledivrei Rav Chananya ben Akavia. If you've got a platform of wood which is lying horizontally, that means it's flat, and it's less than 3 tefachim away. There has to be 24 tefachim. Now, if you look at the picture carefully, why do you have to have 4 amas? 4 amas is 24 tefachim. 4 amas, 4 tefachim is because that you bend down, and the 10 amas to make the enclosure on each side of the 4 tefachim. And this is the question that Rashash asked yesterday, and is even more shver over here, that if you only have a T shape, it would, a capital T, it would also work, if you imagine it. And that's a very big problem, which is very disturbing. But the Gemara over here, perhaps the answer is, the Gemara is assuming that you've got one flat piece of wood, and it's very hard to start making it, to cut it out. But all you really need is enough that the flaps on each side should be 10 tefachim long, that you can bend it, fold it down, and on this side should be 4 tefachim thing, and then you've got middle 4, and you've got good enough. Very good. So it has to be 11. The reason it has to be 11 is because it's 3 tefachim away from the wall. So you need to have 10 for the down and 1 tefach going in, or mashu, a tiny bit more. Because if it's 3 tefachim, we don't say long. It's only if it's slightly less than 3 tefachim, we say long. If the wood was not flat, but rather it's upright, it has to be 10 tefachim high, 10 tefachim plus 6 and a bit. Imagine this is 10 tefachim. And this is opposite, but imagine here's my one thing. So it needs to have 6 tefachim this way. Then I bend it 1 tefach in each direction. So I've got 4 tefachim this way, 1 tefach in each direction this way. I put it closer. It's 6 tefachim and a little bit, 6 tefachim and 2 little bits. And I put it as close as possible to the wall within 3 tefachim. So then I have less than 3 tefachim gap, which is lavud. And then I've got my enclosure of 4 tefachim plus 10 tefachim down. And that's all I need. And finally, if it was at a corner, if it's at a corner, it just has to be 10 tefachim tall and 2 and a bit tefachim. Because once it's at a corner, as we described, if this is 10 tefachim long and each side of this is only 1 tefach, put it at the corner against another corner, like we described earlier, like you look at the pictures, then you've got your shapes, and therefore that's enough. If you look at it as picture Tov Kuf Yud base, right? Look at Tov Kuf Yud Aleph and Tov Kuf Yud base. Tov Kuf Yud Aleph is how the wood is, and Tov Kuf Yud base, you can then picture how you would bend it. And even if I'm afraid the Gemara, if that's the case, so in all these cases, you need much less than we described earlier. You have to have 4x4 amas. Then you have to pretend that you cut it at 4x4 tefachim. What's the case that you ever need to have a huge piece of wood? If you've got a wall, we said you just need to have 6 tefachim, a corner 2 tefachim. If it's on the side, you have to have 11 tefachim. But when did you ever have to have 4 amas? And it's no, the Abida Kiasita is made like a platform. Look at picture Tov Yud Kuf Yud Gimel. Like it reminds me a little bit of an oil rig. Tov Kuf Yud Gimel, it's a platform in the middle of the sea. Did you load up the picture, Tony?
Yeah.
Tov Kuf Yud Gimel. So the whole, it's in the middle of nowhere. Since in the middle of nowhere, look at the picture. You cannot rely on any walls next to it. Have you got it, Shai? Have you got the picture? It's pass in the book. Pass in the book. Pass in the book. So if you look at Tov, you've got no. If you've got a platform. Wait a second. If you've got a platform without any walls, then you're going to need to have 10 tefachim. Do you see the picture of the platform? When you've got a picture of a platform. But what's the point of why we talk about a platform, not next to the wall? Because if it's next to a wall, then you can be on the wall, and like Ben put, and therefore you need much less. All you need to have is the mount which should fall down against the wall. You can use the wall as one of the four. But if you, for example, you're living in the middle of the sea, there you still have the kasha. I know, but you don't need the corners. not a T shape, a bit like a
Next,
plus sign. A plus sign would also work. That's the cash, yes. So if you've got a platform in the middle of the sea and you want to take water out of the sea, what's the problem taking water out of the sea?
It's from the cameras.
Two.
So
Very good. It's a Kamal Susha
if you're in
Seochit.
the middle of the seat, how are you going to get to this platform?
Let's say for whatever second you were stuck in the
You're
middle
stuck on
of
this platform for.
the Shabbos. And now you want to be able to draw water from the sea because you're thirsty or it's a river. Yeah, no, but if you're walking this as a bridge to it, then the bridge itself might provide you one of the walls. Okay. So then you have to have quite a big platform for it to work because it has to have 10 tefachim in each direction from the middle, which actually makes it, if you work it out, 24 tefachim in each direction, which is 4 amos by 4 amos, which is quite a big
On the
platform.
platform, if there's wall going down the side, there's a wall, right?
So you
The
don't,
water.
Oh, if there's walls going down already, you don't need to have.
you don't need to have such a big platform. That's all.
That's
That's right. That's what we said earlier. You don't need to have such a platform. Okay. New Mishnah, similar problem. Amas Hamayim, a stream of water. Shiur Iberes b'chotza. They've actually made us a picture. Picture. Let's look at it. Tov Kuf Yudalet. If you don't mind to look at the picture for a second. Tov Kuf Yudalet. You've got a stream of water going through a chotza. Now, look at Tov Kuf. I'd like to look at the pictures because I don't want to keep going back to the pictures. So if you look at the pictures, Tov Kuf Yudalet, if you look very carefully, they've made a wall inside the canal at both ends. Can you see? Show it. Can you see they made a wood? Right. In Tov Kuf Tesvov,
So the wall goes.
there's no wall. Very good. The Tov Kuf Tesvov, they never bothered with the wall.
I mean, they didn't go below the.
Right. Now, if you look at Tov Kuf Zayin, there's a slight difference. The difference in Tov Kuf Zayin and the other pictures is that Tov Kuf Zayin, there's a bank to the river. Normally, we're talking about a river without a bank, where what happens is, the article actually have a better picture, where the house goes directly onto the river. So that later the Gemara is going to get a Kimta, we'll talk about a bank. No, that is the platform. That's the platform. No, not that one either. I'm sorry. Does not have the numbers by you?
No, it's just a different.
Oh.
Seal Gimel today.
Oh.
Which one is it? Is that describing them? They put water into the water.
Yes. If you look carefully, it's the one. You've got the same Gemara. Right.
So this one.
That's the one. Right. Okay. So let's do the Mishnah again inside. Amas Hamayim Shiur Iberes b'chotza in the malin in the Shabbos. You're not allowed to take water out on Shabbos. Why can't you take water out on Shabbos? Carmel is too. You have to make a 10 tefachim wall by the entrance and by where it goes out. Yehuda says it's okay. You do not need to make a wall inside. Does anybody know why?
Because we discussed this before.
What did we say?
You need to go down to the water.
Very good. What does he call it?
Floating wall.
A floating wall. Rabbi Yehuda's shitta was Rabbi Yehuda in the last Mishnah as well, same Rabbi Yehuda. And who did we say it's like? Whose shitta was it similar to? Very similar to? You should have done Sukkah. Rabbi Yossi in Sukkah who says that what? That Mishalshim B'Tfanos, you go down. So this is Rabbi Yehuda. In fact, the Gemara is not going to even explain Rabbi Yehuda because all of this is so obvious. The Gemara doesn't explain Rabbi Yehuda. This is the shitta of Rabbi Yehuda. I mean, he can explain a little bit, but not. Oh, Rabbi Yehuda, I'll prove it to you. You want me to prove it to you? I'll prove it to you. Ma'aseh ba'omer shel Ovel. Ovel was the name of a town. Imagine a town called Ovel. They would take water out of the canal on Shabbos. So you see, without a wall, and it worked. The canal was not a deep canal. It wasn't even 10 tefachim deep. It was only, let's say, 5 tefachim deep. Since it was only 5 tefachim deep, or it wasn't 4 tefachim wide, anything which is not 10 tefachim deep or 4 tefachim wide is not considered a separate reshus. Since it's not considered a separate reshus, it was part of the chotza and it did not need. So when we've got a problem with a little stream going through your garden and it's not 10 tefachim deep, or it's not, it's either one is good enough, because if it's not 10 tefachim deep or it's not 4 tefachim wide, you can take water out of it. It's only if it's both 10 tefachim deep and 4 tefachim wide that you're going to have a problem to take water, and then you have to make a mechitza. Now we have a brisa that explains the Mishnah. This brisa kimat doesn't add anything to the Mishnah, just elaborates a little bit on what's the shiur. Also, they made a gate by the entrance for the Oslo B'Yitzia. Or Oslo b'yitzir v'le'oslo b'knisa. Ein memani nemeno b'Shabbos. You cannot fill from it b'Shabbos. Why? Because it's a countless l'shus hayochid. Elam kain oslo mechitza asot tvach b'yitzir b'knisa. Unless you make both by the entrance and by the exit a mechitza of 10 tvach. Rabbi Yehuda Ima, koisa shal gam atitim mechitza. Omar Rabbi Yehuda Ma'is v'amasamayim sheisep ba'obe over letzipoi v'imani nemeno b'Shabbos apichach oskeinim. That there was a stream of water which they did fill from. It wasn't 10 by 4, and because it wasn't 10 by 4, therefore you cannot compare. So far we've learned in our Mishnah, if you have a stream of water going through your chutzah, if it's 10 by 4, if that's a 10 by 4, you don't need to worry about it. If it's 10 by 4, and then you have a machlokas tanoim what to do. Shittas Tanakama, what do you have to do? You have to make a wall both by the entrance and the exit. Shittas Rabbi Yehuda is do nothing. Well, you've got to have a wall of the chutzah. Very good. Tanya Edoch. Amas hamayim hoiveres benachalonos. You've got a stream of water going between the windows, meaning that you've got a window overlooking a stream of water, and you can see a stream of water going through, and now you want to throw your bucket out the window and draw water. If it's less than 3 tvachim, you can lower your bucket to mamali. Shloisha, if it's 3, ein mashal shel dli mamali, you cannot lower your bucket. Shugam lo lema pachas with daled mashal shel dli mamali, daled ein mashal shel dli mamali. So we have a machlokas regarding a stream of water which is going through a street called. Imagine you've got I can bet this, instead of having a road, you have a stream of water, a canal. So if it's less than 3, everybody agrees it's okay. More than 4, they were saying it's good. Less than 3 agrees okay. More than 4, everybody agrees it's no good. Between 3 and 4, Tanakama says it's no good, Shimon says it is good. And as Ben asks correctly, what is 3? 3 what? 3 deep, 3 wide, 3 what? This question, what is 3, is going to be tackled for the next Amud in the Gemara. What exactly is 3 Tvachim over here? What is 3? 3 what? Says the Gemara. We have to remember the halachas. Again, you've got a stream of water going between 2 houses, and the houses overlook it, and we both want to fill up water from it. I live on one side of it, you live on another. So it depends. If it's 3, till 3, it's okay. More than 4, it's no good. Between 3 and 4, it's machlokes. Says the Gemara like this. But my oskino. That we're discussing the width of the stream of water. We're discussing the width. Abdimi came along and told us, Chazal never forbade an area less than 4 tvachim. Why? Less than 4 tvachim is so insignificant that it's completely irrelevant. So if you've got an area less than 4 tvachim, nobody cares. And since nobody cares, so therefore it is mutter. Now, yes, you could pass from window to window. It's not in the calendars. Actually, if it belongs to different people, it depends if you made an Eiruvin or not. If you didn't make an Eiruvin, you won't be allowed to come. So again, if you've got a stream of water less than 3, if we talk about the width of the stream of water, if we talk about the stream of the water, the width of it, I don't understand. Because of Dimi told us that less than 4, Chazal always mattered. And according to this, it's a machlokes Tanakama Shum Gamliel. But Shum Gamliel said more than 4, it's no good. Less than 4, it's okay. Tanakama said less than 3 is okay. More than 3 is no good. But according to Avdimi said that I've got a general rule that 4 is up to 4 is okay. But Avdimi is not moira. These were Tanoim. It's unlikely that Avdimi would say a statement which is actually a machlokes Tanoim, and in fact the majority, the Chachamim, do not agree with it. What does Avdimi say?
Dimi said it's got to be less than 4 plus.
No, Dimi said any area less than 4 is insignificant. No, it doesn't need to be less than 10 as well. We said either or. It's either. We said either one makes a mutter. If you've got a stream of water in your garden, either less than 4 or less than 10, it's not considered a separate rishus. So if Dimi said like this, anything less than 4 tvachim is not important. It says the Gemara, if you're explaining the machlokes as regarding the width of the stream, so then it comes out that Tanakama, the Chachamim hold that what? That 3 is no good, and Mishkamah says 4 is no good. So the Avdimi said up to 4 is fine. Who is he going like? Mishkamah. Which means that Dimi was saying it can that possibly be? It's not likely. Says more, we're talking about the bank of the river and to swap. Meaning like this. We're talking about a stream which is a proper carmelis. That means it was 4 wide and 10 deep. Am I allowed to take water from my window to? No. Why? I'm taking from a Karmelis to Rishus HaYachid. But this particular stream had a bank to it. The bank was either less than 3 or 4 tefachim wide. Since the banks are so insignificant, I'm going to do a shtick over here. What's the shtick? I'm going to take water out of the Karmelis and put it on the bank. The bank is a Mokim Petur.
This is the same as the Mokum.
Very good, very, very good. Let's get it clear first. Let's get it clear first. I'm going to take water from the Karmelis and put it on the bank. Have I done anything wrong? No. The Karmelis is a Karmelis, but to a Mokim Petur, less than 3 or 4. Then I'm going to take it from the bank into my house. Therefore, it's okay. So the hachlifa means to swap. Meaning I'm swapping from the Karmelis to the bank and the bank to my house. What's the machlekes? If that's the case, the machlekes is like this: that Tanakama held once it's more than 3 tefachim, it's a significant area, and therefore Chazal did not allow you because it's not considered bottle. It's a proper area, and therefore they forbade it. Gamliel says if it's up to 4, it's not considered a significant area. So again, what did we just say over here? We're talking about carrying from a Karmelis to my house, and the machlekes Gamliel is not the width of the river. The river, everybody agrees, is 4 by 10, and therefore it's a Karmelis, therefore it's forbidden. The argument they're discussing is the width of the bank of the river. Tanakama says up to 3, I'm allowed to swap from there to do in 2 stages. Gamliel says you can't. Sorry, Gamliel says up to 4 you're allowed to. It's more maker. Ben straight away jumped and asked the question. Now we've actually discussed this many times. If you are standing in your house and you've got a post between your house and the Rishus HaRabim, what's the halacha? That you're allowed to put it from your house to Mokim Petur or from Rishus HaRabim to Mokim Petur, but you're not allowed to use it as a staging post for the next one. You're not allowed to use it as a loophole. So why over here do we permit it? What would you naturally try and answer?
You need to drink.
Okay, I thought of that. The more says a different one, a better one, I would have thought. There's a simple answer you should be shouting. Maybe you already know Tosis Kash and you're not answering that Kash answer. What's the simple answer?
The bank to the house allowed?
That's the question.
It's a Karmelis that is Karmelis.
Very good. That's Mo's answer. That when did we say not allowed to? It's from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim, where you're actually doing an Issa D'Oraisa, except you manage to find a loophole to get around it. But here you're carrying from a river to your house. A Karmelis is only to Rabbanon. Now, what should be your question? I thought maybe you had Tosis' question. That's why you didn't want to answer the answer. Why? Very good. Tosis asked the kasha. It's not true. What does Tosis say? That many times we have said, I won't ask how many times because that would be very difficult, that we've said that about Rabbanons because people are bezalza with more machbet. So Tosis says that this Gemara didn't hold of the answer. Okay, let's do the Gemara inside. Let's see inside. What? Okay, then you've done an Issa because where are you going to do it? You're going to leave it in the air? How are you not going to be able to leave it in there? Okay, so then again, but then you've done it, you've used a loophole. If you can't leave it in there, it won't dangle in there. No. There you've set it down and then you pick it up, you're doing a new action. Says it like this. Elo ba'kafer v'la'achlif, the machlekes was 3 or 4 tefachim on the banks and to swap over from one to another. If you've got a place which is not 4 by 4, post 4 by 4, both Rishus are allowed to put the item down to adjust the load. Ubelvad, on condition, what's the condition? What means shlo yachlifu? You shouldn't go from one area to the next. Answers the Gemara. Hossam there, Rishus D'Oraisa. Hocham Rishus D'Rabbanon. So we've got the Gemara's. What Ben argued, what Shai argued. We've got it all clear on paper. Look at top Tosis. Tosis says, Tosis says the other Gemara will argue more. Favorite Gemara, that's not true. The Gemara is now going to bring a long Gemara to prove that what? That this Issa of changing over from one Rishus to another is through a Mokim Petur is Asa even by D'Rabbanans. We're going to find a place where Rabbi Yochanan told us explicitly that you're not allowed to go from one Rishus to another, even though it's only D'Rabbanan, through a loophole. And the Gemara is going to quote a sugya which we've actually learned before, and hopefully we'll remember for some of it. Rabbi Yochanan Rishus Abonam Yoma, the Tanan. Remember, you've got a wall between 2 chatzers. If it's 10 by 4, What's the halacha? Can we make an eruv together if it's 10 tvachim high? If I've got a garden and your garden, and there's a 10 tvachim wall high between us. You can't. Ma'avin shnaim, ein ma'avin echad. You can do separate. You can't make an eruv together. How you voice it, pay voice if there's fruit on top of the wall. You can go and eat on top of the wall. Why? Because the wall is 10 by 4, it's a separate rishus. If the wall broke down and there's a 10 amos gap, what's the halacha now? Then ma'avin shnaim, what's ma'avin echad? You can do an eruv together or separately because it's like an entrance. If it's more than 10 amos, that was the whole Mishnah. If it's more than 10 amos, what's the halacha? It's considered like we're together. You have to do an eruv together. We asked there, if you remember, what happens if the wall doesn't have 4? You've got a thin wall between me and your garden, and it's 10 tefachim high, so I can't make an eruv with you because we've got a wall. But the top of the wall is not its own rishus. Are you allowed to eat fruit on top of the rishus? You've got 2 different rishus on it, but and you can't move it at all. You can't move it at all. You're allowed to take onto the wall and eat it, but you're not allowed to take from the wall down. You can go on the wall and eat, but not from the wall down. Now, I can't take from the wall down. Let me take it up from my house, put it on the wall. I have taken it from a wall to Moki Patur because it's less than 4 tvachim wide. And then later, when you want it, you'll take it from the wall and take it down into your rishus. Oh, but what we talk about today, so do I say so do Rabbanon? Do Rabbanon? Probably, it's definitely do Rabbanon. It's my God, your God. So what do we see? The Rabbi Yehuda holds you're not allowed to swap, even by the Rabbanons. So the verse is like this. But as the Rabbi Yehuda the shit that you're not allowed to take it up on the wall. So you see clearly the Rabbi Yehuda holds you're not allowed to put it on the wall, even when it's the Rabbanons. So let's go through the sugya what we've had so far. We had a story where the person had a stream of water, machlokes al kama shel 3 or 4 when is it permitted. First, we want to suggest we'll talk about the width of the stream. Why were we not satisfied with that answer? Why can't we say it? Who said it's up with Dimi? And according to this, if the argument would be at the width of the stream, with Dimi's words would be a machlokes al kama shel very good. So we explain we're discussing the banks and we're discussing when you're doing it in 2 steps. And the question is, are you considered carrying or not? The Gemara says you're not allowed to when you've got Mishun Shus Yachad Shus Rabim. What did the Gemara answer? That they it's a Shus Device, it's a Shus Rabbanon. Says, well, that's not the answer. It's only Shus Rabbanon. In Shus Rabbanon also. So one says a side point. It's a very big chumrah of a Kiva Ega, which the Shavuot says we do not pass. Well, he brings it, and he says you don't have to rely. But it's a fascinating chumrah, which is a scary chumrah. If you're going in the Shus Rabim, let's say, and suddenly you feel a huge urge to scratch your head, so you want to take your hat off while you're walking. What happens? Are you allowed to walk a little bit and scratch your head? Oh, very good. Up to 4 amos allowed. Says Ukivek, and this Gemara Rav said, and I've got a wall between my garden and your garden, and it's less than 4 tvachim wide. How much am I allowed to move? 0, not even a hair's breadth. Why not? Because the top of the wall, it belongs to 2 different people. So therefore, when I move it, I could be moving it I'm moving it in an area which belongs to both of us. So we imagine it as being both of ours. So if I move it a hair's breadth, I could be moving it from somewhere which is mine to yours or vice versa. No, so Kivek does not machmer Shus Rabim. Shus Rabim says, okay, if you want to scratch your head in the Shus Rabim, gesundheit. But if you're in a chotzer, what happens if you're walking in a chotzer? You're walking along a cul-de-sac like Castlefield Avenue, and you take off your hat, and the Ajahn Manch won't have a Eiruvin, and you want to scratch your head. Take off your hat. You can't do it.
It's your hat. Over there, it's your foot.
No,
It's the same thing.
what
It's
it's
not
saying is
chatting
you're
the arse
carrying
of chatting the
it's
shus.
just that
So,
isn't-
Shai straight to jumping that, straight to his bothered. How can this argue? Kivek it's before Gemara. What's the svod? The Gemara says you're not allowed to. Says the Mishnah Boy brings it from going Yaakov.
It's only by a wall.
Oh, but why would it only be by one?
That is between 2 rishus.
Very
More
good.
likely to come to the
Very good. Exactly. You could have written it yourself. By a wall, we're scared that if you start moving on top of the wall, you'll come to move from my house. Because at the end of the day, it's a thin wall. And if I allow you things, so Chazal didn't want you to move it a hair's breadth. But the chotzer, you want to scratch your head, you want to carry something for a minute, you can. Why? No, because he's saying not like that. He's saying that.
Everyone has ownership. And
So the fact that let's say he didn't do an Eiruvin doesn't matter. In the area where you didn't do an Eiruvin, let's say, we're not chayshish with one just another. Chazal never made that chumah. They only made the chumah on top of a wall. Okay. So now we're going. What?
We don't have Rishus about him. So if it wasn't an Eiruvin, anywhere in Manchester would be a problem.
I know. This Kiva would be a problem if we don't have an Eiruvin in Manchester, and we'd have
Anywhere
it.
you
It would be a big problem of walking 2 steps. Let's say it would be a big problem. Like Okay. So going back to our original question, when we said 3 and 4, what were we discussing? 3 and 4, what? Answers the Gemara, Ahi Ze'evi Amor, meaning that we're talking about the bank 3 or 4. Oh, you said Abichan said it says Asa by Shusay Yachid, or even by Sudrabanom, that was Shita Ze'evi. And the Dimi never agreed with him. Feidbol was Ze'evi Kasha, as well as Moikim Obama Samaim, Gufa Vabdimi Tanoihi. Let me take this. The Gemara's now got 2 Mahalchim. 2 different explanations regarding the stream of water, which we said the machlekes 3 or 4. What is the machlekes? According to Ze'evi, the machlekes is that the stream of water itself is 3 or 4. Oh, Rav Dimi told us that up to 4 nobody cares. No, Ze'evi doesn't hold of that. He argues with Rav Dimi. He says what you said up to 4 nobody cares is actually machlekes that comes from Gamliel. Tanakama says up to 3, Vishkum says up to 4, and therefore this statement of Rav Dimi is actually machlekes that according to Ze'evi. According to Rav Dimi, that which Ze'evi told us, that you're not allowed to do this loophole even by Isur D'Rabbanan is not true. You are allowed to do this loophole by Isur D'Rabbanan. And therefore the machlokes between Tanakam and Gamliel is talking about whether the bank is 3 or 4, not whether the river is 3 or 4. And the question is, can you use this loophole to carry from the river to the bank and from the bank to the house? So we've got machlokes Tanakam and Gamliel, when are you allowed to carry from the river to the house, whether it's 3 or 4? We have 2 explanations, we're going to have a third later, as to what the machlokas was. Is the machlokas because of the fact that it is 3 or 4, the width of the river, and then what Dimi told us that up to 4 nobody cares is a machlokas? Or is we're talking about the bank of the river 3 or 4, and we're talking about using the 2-step, and the machlokas is whether you're allowed to use the 2-step by Isur D'Rabbanan. Now the Gemara asks a fundamental question which we walked right at the beginning. Why is it a Carmelis? Because this river, let's say, I asked you this question, let's see if you remember, we had it in Shabbos. You're walking in your house, and you go to your garden, and in your garden, you've got a beautiful wall around your garden, and there's a hole in the wall. What is the status of your garden, by the way? What's the status of that garden? Shusay Yachid. What's the status of the holes in the wall of the Shusay Yachid? That was by Shusay Yachid. As far as I cannot remember, Gemara saying it's a Shusay Yachid. Walls of Shusay. And similarly, if you walk in the Shusay Yachid, there you're right. Most holes are Rishus Harabim because it's part of the Shabbat. Could be holes of Shabbat. Says the Gemara, this stream should be considered Rishus Yachid. Sorry. The Gemara asks a kasha that even when you've got, even when you've got only 3 tvachim, less than 3 tvachim wide. Less than 3 tvachim wide. What's the halacha? We said that everybody says it's okay. Why is it okay? Because it's not a count. Why is it not a count? Because it's very, very small. But where does every river come from? From a bigger river. So you've got this massive river in Manchester, and you've got a stream coming through your back garden. And the stream in your back garden is less than 4 wide and less than 10 tvachim deep. But what is it? It's like a cubbyhole of the main river, which is down 100 meters away. So it should be like a cubbyhole of the main river. A cubbyhole of the main river should be the same thing as Shvei Karmelis. So even if it's less than 3 tvachim, it should be like a chayve, which is a Karmelis. Very big moment to have a chayve Karmelis. Meaning like this. The whole din of Karmelis was only Issa D'Rabbanan. Chazal didn't take the Issa so far to add it, they include the cubbyholes as well. Only the actual Karmelis itself. Only by, no, so it's Mokim Pitul. It's Mokim Pitul. Very good, it's Mokim Pitul. Yes, that's it. No. Once it's 4 by 10, it's a Karmelis on its own accord. When it's not 4 by 10. Since it's far away from its main river, so therefore it's considered to be not a cubbyhole. It's not part of it. Going back to now, let's look at the picture. It's a very straightforward picture. I was very happy they made a picture of it. Look at picture Tov Kuf Yud Zayin. Have you got the picture Tov Kuf Yud Zayin? It's good to see the picture inside. Tov Kuf Yud Zayin. The person was lazy. And what happened was he made a wall to block off the river like the Mishnah and Tanna Kama said he should do. What did he say? You should make a wall in the water. But what did he do? He didn't make it all the way. He left a gap of either 3 or 4 tvachim. What would you say? Good or no good? When do we say lavud? Machlokes who? Very good. We had machlokes in Shabbos. Tanna Kama Shgamliel when we say lavud by 3 or lavud by 4. We had actually today even as well. So therefore, the machlokes about the stream is the same old machlokes of lavud. You're going to miss it again. Look at the picture. A person made a wall, but he didn't fill the gap. According to Tanna Kama, up to 3 is okay. Why is it okay? Because it's a lavud. It says as if he closed the gap. According to Shgamliel, up to 4 is okay, because up to 4 is like he closed the gap. So the machlokes regarding the stream of water, 3 or 4, is the old machlokes of lavud. Let's see the Gemara inside. We know about Nifki made out of it an outlet, a puma by the entrance. They're going according to the shit and machlokes of lavud. So how many different explanations do we have to this 3 or 4? There are 3 explanations. Going backwards, either we're talking about not the river, not the banks. We're talking about the wall which he made to block the river. Did he leave a gap of 3 or 4? Or we're talking about the banks and we're describing where the person wants to carry water as a 2-step method and to use the loophole, and the machlokes is by Rabbanans, can you use that loophole when it's 3 or 4? Or we're talking about the sides of the river is 3 or 4, and the machlokes is with Dimi's shitta, that up to 4 we don't care about. That's the machlokes, or maybe even that by 3 we do care about. Now we're going to a Mishnah, which I hope everybody will find dead easy, because we've discussed it so many times, it should be very clear. We're discussing somebody who's got a balcony, and he wants to get water out of the river. What should he do? No. He makes an enclosure. What happens if there's an enclosure on top and not an enclosure below? Oh, so that's the question. But what happens if they never made an Eruv together? So if they didn't make an Eruv together and it's connected, so then both have right of way. So therefore neither of them are allowed to take water. Very good. And the Gemara is going to ask you a question. What was your question? Do you remember you asked the question? I remember at the time thinking. What was your question? The question was, why is it fair for the lower person? The Gemara is going to make a kimta. Why is it fair for the other person after making all the effort of building his enclosure, comes along the lower person?
Why is it fair for the upper person?
That's right. So what's the answer? The lower person built it together with him. Okay, we'll see it all inside it. Gezustera, a balcony, which is above the water. Great to go this very easily. Below and above is simply whether you make the enclosure below the balcony or the box above the balcony. Very good. No, we never had it before. Not in the Mishnah, only in the Gemara. We had it in the Gemara. Two balconies, they're both forbidden to make an Eruv. Now, our Mishnah says you have to make an enclosure. Do you have to make an enclosure? Very good. Oh, so our Mishnah doesn't go like that, Mandama. Says what about listen. You could have written it yourself. Why? The Tanya Chadani and you just pretend in your imagination that. No, because Teresa asks us a little bit. Teresa says the Mishnah, if a held of Hananya, wouldn't have told you make an enclosure. The Mishnah would have said, as long as you can pretend there's an enclosure. The fact that the Mishnah didn't say anything, because Teresa asks it, it's not like Hananya. We had this actually once before. Why? It's got fences by Yoros and villages, and enclosures, and it says this again, that our Mishnah is not like Chananya. Why is the Mishnah not like Chananya? Because if our Mishnah like Chananya, our Mishnah would say that in Tiberia it's not necessary. So the fact is, our Mishnah is not like Chananya. Our Mishnah holds you actually have to make the enclosure. You can't pretend, you can't imagine there's an enclosure. You actually have to go and make the enclosure. Now the Gemara tells us that Hananya was actually a Rav in Tveria. And he made 3 special heterim for people living in Tveria. So it's a shame we don't live there. We would have those 3 colors. What's the 3 colors? One of them was The man b'Shabbos you're allowed to fill up water, which we just explained. What's the heter? What was his chiddush? Even if you don't make the enclosure, as long as the wood is big enough that theoretically there could have been an enclosure, it's good enough. That's the first. We're turning the atzel. Atzel is the stubble of beans. Whenever you grow legumes or beans, you always have a lot of plants, and you can use it to store your fruit. If you have a lot of apples, you don't want them to bang against each other, get bruised. So you have to get soft. Nowadays, they use cotton wool and things like that, styrofoam. The older days, they would use the stubble of beans. And we'll see in a minute what was the problem with that. When we're stopping by luntis, you have to dry yourself in the towel on Shabbos. The more explains, man in mind, because Zusta the Shabbos or Domonak, we just explained that you just imagine it, it's good enough. But the Tanya, we've learned this many times, and we've learned it again, many again. For something to become Tomei, what is the first thing that must happen to it? Very good. It has to be wet. It's not enough for it to be wet, it has to be wet with the owner's will, even better. You have to have the owner's will. If it rained, let's say I pluck all my apples and it rained, I didn't want it to rain. And then something Tommy touches it, is it Tommy? No, I never want it. Now, what happens if it becomes wet? Not because I decided to make it wet, but I am happy it became wet. Right, how do we know that? It says Rashi, the Apostle says kiyite, which means that you put. And sorry, it says kiyutan, that you put it, and that it's done by itself, and it's read kiyite. So kiyite dumyate kiyutan, meaning as long as the water got there, similar to the concept that you would have wanted the water. Now, what happened was this stubble of the beans was always wet. Why? Because in the morning the dew comes down, makes it all wet. Now you then store your apples in this, what would we call it, vegetation. So your apples all got wet. Did you want your apples to get wet? Oh, so this is the chiddush. What Daniel said is that the people in Tver never wanted to get wet. There were some people that did want to get wet. The more I'll explain. Was the turn about Samai, the Tana Hishkim. Person gets up early in the morning, Havi Peselis, in Bishul Sheshel of Tar, if he did it specifically, because he wanted to get it wet. That means he thought to himself, I'll knock out two birds in one stone. I'll have what to store my apples. Plus, my apples will get moist. And by my apples getting moist, what have I gained? That they won't dry and shrivel up. So I've gained two things. Imagine, for example, somebody offers you cotton wool, which is wet. You'll buy it twice the price because you've got cotton wool to store your fruit that they don't get damaged, bruised, and they're wet, and now keep your apples fresh. So over here, that's kiyutan as a bechiyuta. If the only reason you got up early was not because you wanted to be wet with a Jew, but rather you need to go to work and you can't get to your business late because your boss will fire you. So therefore, what happens is you're not really interested in the water of the vegetation. You just want vegetation because to keep it the apples from bruising. Oh, the fact is you went early in the morning when it was wet. You never went because it was wet. You went because you were busy. In the stam top of Pechesem Aleph and Tveria in Tveria they used to work very hard and they used to go to business early, and therefore they had no choice but to take the vegetation while it was still wet, and that is why he permitted it. And he said it's not Tommy. Let's just do another 3 lines. He allowed them to dry themselves with a towel. To tell you, we actually did this once before. You're allowed to dry yourself with a towel and leave it in the cubby hole. A window in these days, it means a cubby hole. That's what they used to do it in the bathhouse. You're not allowed to give it to the bath attendant. Why? Because we're choished that what will they do? They'll squeeze it out. Very good. Shimon holds were not choished that person will squeeze out a towel. So it comes out that the Shimon holds not squeeze, and so did Hananiah held. Therefore, he allowed the people of Tveria to take the towels home, and he was not choished that they would squeeze it out. He held that they would not do it. When Yaakov and others ask, why was it only matter to Tveria, not other places? Because other two have got to do it. Okay, we'll come to it another time maybe. It's very good. We're starting a new topic now, so that's what we've got there. Very good. Sure. Oh yes, tomorrow finishing a parak.
Right.
You heard
Not me.
Yes.
I've been sat. He's sure I do.
No, he hasn't been for a long time.
I'm trying to work out. It's just approach money, but people aren't. I can't ask. It's just Yehuda.
He came quite a lot.